You have to live within your means, and if you can do that,
or try to.
Yeah, you if you can do that, and if you want to know, like when people say like, oh well, that's easy for you to say because you're making this amount of money. It doesn't matter.
I'm not.
There's people that are there are people that are making $250,000 a year and are dead broke every day, right? It's about how much you spend, not how much you make. So. Let's say you make $40,000 a year, right? So you're like, dude, how am I going to buy real estate? How am I going to invest when I'm making $40,000 a year right now? Okay, cool. If you somehow, for some reason, your job was like, you're working 2 less hours a week. So now you're down to $38,000 a year. Yeah. Would that change your life dramatically, drastically? Not really.
For me.
Well, but if you're struggling now at $38,000, you're still gonna be struggling, right? Like it's not gonna make that much of a difference. You're gonna have to make more sacrifices. Yes. You're gonna be hurting a little bit more, but you're not gonna It's not gonna dress. You're not gonna have to move to Ohio. You're not gonna not drastically. It's just gonna hurt a little bit more. So, if you're able to take that pain because your job, something outside of your control, inflicted that change to your life, why not take advantage of the fact that didn't happen and you inflict the change to your life and put away $2,000, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
If you put away $2,000 right now, like we said, 7 to 9 years, it's going to be $4,000, to $8,000, and 30 years from now, when you're retired, you have $12,000 there without changing anything except making a little bit of sacrifices here. Now, continue doing that every year. How much does that add up to, right? It's not easy. It's not easy. And again, I'm throwing out $40,000. You're making a lot of sacrifices if you're at $40,000 a year. Yes, because of the cost of living and everything.
Yeah, like you're eating, I would say, beans, right? Some top ramen and some bread.
The ramen noodles.
And that's about it, because that's how I used to live. I'm a bit up now. I eat some, like, I would say, like some rice and some meat, but no, it's all good.
I can afford cheese for my beans now.
Some spice.
That's another thing. I think everybody should be taking advantage of the opportunities that are around them.
Yes.
There are so many places that are actually hiring. There's a lot of things that are going on in the community, and a lot of people are just looking online. Okay. Some people need to get up and they need to literally go to the place that they want their job. Yes. The vision where they're going.
Networking. Like I said, ask people about what they do, they'll talk your ear off, right? Now, if you go listen to somebody, if you go listen to somebody and say, hey, whatever, the owner of Better Buzz Coffee or Chipotle or whatever, you go there and you happen to know somebody that's an entrepreneur, you ask.
It's a hookup.
Yeah, you just ask them about it, they're going to be excited to talk to you about it, right? And after they talk to you about it for an hour and you actually give them your attention, if you're like, man, that sounds interesting. Hey, you got a spot for me? What do you think the chances are that even if they don't have a spot, they'll make a spot for you?
Yep.
Right then and there, right? If you have an entrepreneur, somebody that owns a restaurant, they might not be hiring. There is no spots to hire. And even if there is, they want somebody with 2 years experience in restaurants. You're not getting hired, right? You're saying, I'm 18 years old, I've never had a job. How am I going to get hired? And you're just complaining like most of us are all the time. But do something simple as that.
Yeah.
Meet somebody, take advantage of the opportunity. When you say, man, that sounds amazing. I love eating in your place. That sounds like an amazing story. That's real cool, sir. Thank you for talking to me about it. Hey, I'd love to be part of your company. I'd love to be part of your restaurant. Do you happen to have a spot for me? I'll do whatever. I just want to be involved. It sounds great. Dude, they'll make a spot for you.
Yeah.
So
that's what we do. So we do recruiting. Usually that's what we do too, bringing people into our business. And that's one of the biggest things that I see is that people are so shy. They just don't know how to, say, oh, I want to take advantage of an opportunity or I want to do that. They're just scared. A lot of people are just scared. They don't know for change. They don't know what's the next.
Many are lazy. Many are looking for an easy way.
I was trying to be nice.
Yeah. No, I'm going to be blunt. I'm going to be blunt. It's not going to be pretty.
But
all
it's
the time,
true, yeah.
A lot of them are just lazy. You tell them what it's like, and as soon as you start talking about the hard work and the late nights here and there and stuff like that, they get turned off.
So we have education, so we get licensed through through the company, right? So the company actually pays for the licensing and everything. The problem is that people get they're like, oh, it was like $50 to sign up. Yeah, well, it's $50 to sign up, but you got 3 more, you got all of your licensing, you got all these things, and they quit. Because it was $50 for a background check or something simple like that people just run away from, And I've noticed that in almost all the way the businesses are now. There aren't people who want to be in there. There's people who have to be in there. And they're miserable. But like you said, we're missing the people who used to show up at the job and show up happy and show up ready to work and show up ready to learn and show up ready. They don't do that anymore because there isn't anybody pushing people for better anymore.
I just want to go over what is going to help us as a whole, because I've learned now, being older, I've lived here for like 118 years. It's not about me. It's about we. It's not about us adults. It's about, you were saying you have two.
Yes, I have two older sons.
Two sons.
A 22-year-old, a 20-year-old, and I have a 10-year-old daughter.
That's awesome. And then you
I have a 19-year-old daughter, an 18-year-old son, and a 14-year-old son.
Nice. And yeah, me, I don't yet, but I'm out and about. I'm around a lot of them. Some are older and some are like super young, and I just see what certain things, either being out and about, either phones, not speaking to people, what that does to them. And yeah, I just wanted to hear from you both what can actually help them out.
I just think as far as coming together, it's going to be, we just got to focus on not being a part of this so much. Like, this gets more love in almost everyone's family, whether it's the kids, your computer, sorry. It's just the computer, the laptop, the tablet. But just your tablets, the phones, everything. Throw the phones in a basket at family dinner. Stop turning the TV on while it's happening, you know? Sit down and really communicate with your family. It's our heart root first, which is gonna be our family. And then we have to be able to project that into our families for them to project that out into the communities. So if we teach our kids to be correct in society, whatever that's,
in air quotes, for sure.
whatever that really means anymore, to me, what I always tell my kids is to be humble, be honest, be kind. Yeah. Like, we don't see a lot of kindness anymore. We don't see all of that stuff, but we don't even see each other anymore. All we see is a screen. We see what's scrolling on there, you know, the TikTok models or the cartoons for the kids or ABC Mouse. Like, you go to the schools and every kid has a computer. They don't even talk to a teacher anymore. They don't have teachers. They're computer screens. It's not a regular school like you would have, like what we used to have. Our teacher would be up there talking to us and having our lectures and doing that. The kids have a computer in front of them while they have that teacher up there. The teacher's only there to tell them
to look at the screen
or what's going on.
Wow.
So they're going from early morning into school, staring at a computer all day, coming home to maybe our parents who are now staring at the computers. So I'm gonna go get online on my PS3 or whatever it is. So we've now lost all contact and communication in our families and our homes and everything before they even went to school. This is what we've connected with, is we have such a connection with our phones, because if you lost your phone today, you'd be freaking out. My kid's the same way. He loses the phone, he's gonna freak out. It's like we have become so dependent on this as our emotional state. This is our compass. This is our everything, that we don't even know how to use our own compass anymore. And that should be our moral compass. And I feel like that's the biggest thing for us as parents, our communities, everything. We start teaching our children how to be real people, we're gonna see a big difference in the way our world goes.
So I don't believe in extremist approaches, right? Like, get rid of this. To me, that's an extremist approach. To me, it's not the best way. I do agree with everything you're saying about what devices are doing to our families specifically.
Yeah.
But for instance, you know, you're married, right?
Yes.
If you forgot to take the trash out this morning, your wife maybe last night said, "Hey, make sure you take the trash." You forgot because you're running late to this.
Oh, it's not taken out still. It's
well, you know, so should her solution be like, you know what? I'm throwing away all your podcast stuff. No, you'd hate that. Your response to that would not be it wouldn't fix the problem necessarily. Okay. So, you know, so my point is, yes, I agree that this is taking over families. We need to do a better job at connecting instead of just being there.
Yeah, that's what I say, the phone, maybe in a bucket in the table.
Before there was devices, there was a lot of kids being raised by TV as it is, right? Kids being loud, turn the cartoons on and leave me alone, right? I mean, cartoons were Saturday morning. Yep. Why? That was the one day parents could sleep in. Yeah. And you had one TV in the house, so that's the time that the kids could have the TV, right? Cartoons in the morning, parents get to sleep in. That's when they just get to make themselves cereal.
And ooh,
So
sit
it's
there and watch them for
yeah.
hours.
So it's no different. It's just now everything is almost everything is like on steroids. The same problems that we've always had on steroids. You had a problem with your family, the unity of your family and communication back then. You're gonna have it now. It's just gonna be exacerbated by the fact there's devices. So, but these are also a tool, right? There's a good thing about this. Like you said, what can you learn from podcasts? I would say, yes, I love books, but 80% of the books that I have read are through Audible because I had a big commute and that was my time. And also podcasts, right? You can put on a podcast and listen to an interesting topic, and as long as you listen to many opinions and many podcasts about the subject, and then do your own research, we put it all together. You just got an education that, whatever 40 years ago was like a month long thing that you had to get trained on. Now you have that information in a matter of a couple of days, right? So it's good if you use it as a tool. You can use it to communicate better with your family. Also, you have a shared calendar. Like we have a shared calendar, so I always know when my daughter has this and my wife has that, if I'm the one taking my daughter to this, because we just put it in there, done. And if if you say, hey, next Saturday we have this in my house, you want to do, we already have an understanding between me and my wife that if I look on the calendar, there's nothing there, and I put it in, that's what we're doing, unless it's something like really big, then maybe but anyways, so you could use it as a tool, right? But the biggest thing, I think, that to go back to your original question, what can we do to get our young people out there more and being able to, I think it starts back to the very basic of respecting each other, right? And many times, especially as we get older, we tend to not respect young people. They're a lot more educated than we were. They are. Sure. They're a lot more informed. So back in the day when your dad told you that, whatever he told you, you had no way to fact check him, so you just believed it. And that's why my dad knew everything, my mom knew everything, and it's done. Now we're saying these kids don't respect their adults. It's because we can no longer do that. So if you're still out there trying to tell, hey, I'm an adult, so you listen to me. Well, if you're telling them a bunch of bull crap and they can simply get on Google and say, yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, we're losing the respect of our youth by doing that, by not being educated. If we are going to pretend we're all knowing, we need to be all knowing because they can check you, right? So if they're into video games, cool, like respect that. Teach them the importance that being on video games all day is not the best use of time. Video games should be how you reward yourself after a hard day of work. Get your homework done, keep your room clean, blah, blah, blah. You do all these things, then I'll reward you by getting you the new PS5 or whatever, But don't say, oh, video games are out, I know from experience, right? I've tried that and it never, even when it works. I was a drill instructor for 5 years. I can control a young mind and get them to do what I want, right? But anytime with my son, when I took that approach where I took video games from him and put him on a strict schedule, boom, it was working like clockwork. But how did I feel in here? I was pulling the strings. I was a puppet master. I was making him do what I want.
I feel like that's kind of what it is. It's like, you don't really know where you're teeter-tottering anymore as a parent and as like an adult. They are learning faster than us. So it is kind of hard to kind of balance with the youth now because a lot of them are so educated, or in their heads they're so educated that they know more than pretty much anyone. So we have our youngers that are kind of stepping up a little bit more than we would normally see, but we also have the ones that don't step up at all because they're...
Well, in some aspects, right? In some of the aspects that so you were talking about schools, right? With my daughter, I don't experience that. They do have a tablet, but the teacher's very involved and everything. It's at least that school. It's a great school. I haven't dealt with that yet, but I have heard there's some schools that are way too much going into technology. But if you take a realistic approach, look at my daughter's in 5th grade. If I look at what she's doing in 5th grade, all the stuff that she's doing, all the things she has to keep in track of, some of the things they do on the laptop, they're doing PowerPoint presentations, they're doing all this other stuff. When I look at 5th grade, are you kidding me?
I was
5th grade?
In like 20, so
yeah, we were reading a paragraph, answering the 5 questions at the end, doing some basic math, and that's it. No, they're doing like this whole, everybody was up in arms about this whole, what's it called? What's this math?
Common Core.
Yeah, the Common Core stuff. To me, at least with my mind, I understand it was a loss in translation. In my mind, that's how my mind's always worked, right? I can't look at a problem and learn a formula and that's how I get my answer. I have to understand. And in the way my mind works is I imagine things in the air, all that. I don't know. I might be on the spectrum or something. But so when that came about, I understood what they were trying to do. But the problem is they're trying to have a structured way to do that to all these, 22 different kids in there whose minds work differently. That's why it doesn't work, but it does at least open their mind to looking at it from different ways. And in the long term, I think it does something. It makes it a lot harder just to teach basic, just to get from point A to step 1 to step 2. And it's not linear, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, they implemented it. My daughter was in 6th grade when they implemented Common Core in this area. And my daughter went from being a straight A student to failing like right away. Like that full year was hard. So then it took her quite a few years to catch back up. But that was what kind of was hard for especially us too, like parents. I could not sit down with my kids and do homework with them anymore.
Now, in the long term, once she changed the way that she studies and everything, and she got her grades back up, do you think it was beneficial for her? The way that
I do, only because I didn't really believe in it at first. I was definitely against it, but once seeing it now and now seeing her, she's a math whiz now. She could do math in her head, but she transitioned, so she had 5 years of learning like we did. And then into
that was the hard part.
The new transition.
That was the hard part. Again, people don't like change because it's change, just for the basis of change. That was the hard part, is that it was change. It was hard for the kids. It was hard for the parents because they've never seen it. But like I said, my mind, I don't know. I was in 4th grade when we moved back to Mexico. We had a little convenience store, and my dad would sit there while I actually ran the store. So give me a soda, give me some chips, give me this and that, and I had to quickly do math in my head, give change. So I got really good at it. I probably gave away too much change here and there because the client, if you don't give enough change, they'll call you out on it. If you give them too much change, they shut up and leave, right? But I learned by the time I was in 6th grade, my dad could leave and I would run that store. I could. So that's why my mind with numbers works well. Where where my wife is on the other side, where her emotional intelligence is through the roof. She can sense in somebody when they're something's wrong, and to a whole nother level that I can't. But I throw some numbers at her and she's like, hold on, like it's just different skills. But anyways, back to the original thing about these kids. Respect what their interests are, show interest, understand what their interests are. You're gonna see it's not that bad. And once you have that connection, right? It's not about get rid of the phone, get rid of the video games. No, show interest, understand. Hey, what are you doing here? Oh, there's people on Twitch making a bunch of money. Get involved. Once you do that, they will reciprocate that. Right? They will once you're showing interest in supporting them, and it doesn't happen immediately. Kids, all of us. Psychologically speaking, if you're ever taking a psychology class, we are selfish by nature. That's how we're wired. We are, and we do everything as a community to kind of push back on that so that we don't go around messing with each other. But by nature, we're selfish, and kids are the most selfish by nature. It's normal. It takes them time to realize that being too self-centered actually has a negative impact in them in the long run, right? So even the act of not being selfish and getting along as a community is selfish. We're doing that so that this community gets better so we can enjoy it, right? It's all, and once you accept that, it's not a bad thing. But kids are selfish, and that's fine. It's going to take a while, but show interest in what they do, and then you will find a chink in their armor at some point and figure out that, they like to ride bikes. Let me get them a bike and take them to this park sometime, and I'll get my bike. Let's go ride mountain bikes. You'll figure something out. Get them involved in sports. Get them in something. You'll figure out an outlet somewhere. And whether he becomes a complete baseball kid that loves to, be in teams, or he just does that here and there. My oldest told me, I don't want to play football anymore, Dad, when he was like 8. They're a year and a half apart, and my second oldest is actually the athletic one, very athletic. So it got to a point where they got to a certain age where it was a 2-year, every 2 years you would move up. So they were on the same team. And now you have my oldest, whose younger brother is outshining him, right? My youngest is the quarterback or the running back. We're scoring. He's on the line, right? Okay. So he didn't like it. He didn't like that, and he said, "I don't want to play football anymore." So at the time, I said, "You know what? Your coach that you have is kind of an a-hole. I understand you didn't have a good time. Give me 1 more year. Yeah. If after 1 more year you still don't like it, then you don't have to do it. I'm not going to force you. Give me 1 more year." We didn't hear about it the whole time he played, like he normally does. He's not the most athletic. Hand-eye coordination isn't his strong suit or anything. He's the responsible one that cleans his room without me telling him, stuff like that. But sports wasn't his thing. After that, at the end of the season, hey, do you want to play or no? No. Okay, fine. You don't have to play anymore, but your brother's got 2-hour practice every day, so that means you're going to do more chores. And you're not going to sit there every day. We had a treadmill at the time. You're going to get on the treadmill, 2-3 times a week. I don't want you just sitting around, you know, especially he was a little chubby when he was a kid. So I put him in the treadmill, you know, and he'd put on his device, his videos, and he just started, and he hated it, right? But again, he's the guy that he'll clean his room without me telling him because he doesn't like to be told to do stuff. Yeah. So after a while, he'd get on the treadmill himself. You know, I started him at a mile, or I started him at half a mile, added a quarter mile. By the time he was like doing a mile and a half, and he could, you know, run or walk, whatever, just finish it, just get active. He would do it on himself. And he used to run real heavy-footed. We'd be downstairs, the treadmill's upstairs. So all of a sudden you hear, pa, 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 because again, his motor skills weren't there. Pa. But as he kept doing that, he became lighter on his feet. Wow. By the time middle school, he realized that he was faster than most kids. High school, he joins cross country, and he's graduating from Dominican University. Cross country scholarship.
That's what's up.
From my kid that was chubby and like couldn't run, you know, would run real heavy-footed, and now he's the fastest guy I know. Even my fastest days were not as fast as this guy is, you know. But so, you know, finding that common ground and just finding something that works. You know, I gave him what he wanted. He didn't want to play football. He would rather do a little bit more chores. He would rather get on the treadmill a little bit, even though he hated it at first. And now, you know, so if you find that commonality with your kids by respecting their wishes, by respecting their interests and understanding it, I think that connection is going to happen. And that's not just true with kids. That's true with relationship with other people. That's true with your spouse. That's true with your workmates. That's true everywhere you go, right? So if it's ever not working out for me in any type of relationship aspect, I always like to take a step back and then I audit myself before I start like the keyboard warriors complaining. This mother effer's lazy. He never does his part. Well, maybe he's not lazy. Maybe he's just not doing the part that affects me because he hates me because I'm always on his ass, you know, blah, blah, blah. I learned that in the military a long time ago. Everybody thinks the military is like, oh, you will do what you're told. And it is. It is a lot of parts, right? There's times when you don't have time to ask why and blah, blah, blah. You very dictatorship. But in the long term, in the big picture things, a good leader will evaluate everybody differently and develop those relationships, and you get way more out of a unit by doing that, you know? So
that's building our community. That's exactly the way we got to do it too.
If you take it a step further, even further back and look at everything, it works the same thing within your community. Yeah. Complaining on Facebook is not going to fix anything. What can you do to help the community, especially if you're that passionate about something? And like I said, right, people say they want a Ferrari, they don't really want a Ferrari. People say that they don't like this about the community, it doesn't really bug them that much. They're just complaining online. But if you do find something that you are that passionate about, figure out what you can do about it. And there is something, you can't fix it overnight, right? Yeah. Nobody can fix things overnight. Nobody has the power to fix everything, but everybody has the power to influence.
That is huge. And yeah, if you're doing something at home and you're not involved in their lives, it will show. If you're involved in their lives, it will show. And I've actually seen it time and time again. Either you are going to be there for them, or someone on YouTube is going to be there for them.
Yep.
And that person on YouTube or wherever, it don't matter what you're looking at. You get people, no, Dad, I'm not going to do that. Mom, no, I seen this person on TikTok or wherever, on YouTube or wherever, that said I got to do it this way. Okay, are they actually here for you? So about schools and being safe. Certain schools are mall, but let's just say about schools because we're talking about kids, and they'll go into that school and hurt people with guns and all that kind of stuff. And of course you have a lot of people, certain people shouldn't have guns, it should be more restricted, all that kind of stuff. Yes, I get it, but we're here to kind of see what people have to say about it, because they have kids who are in schools. And yeah, I'm sure you've spoken about this with the kids and whoever as well.
Definitely has. Obviously, it has to be a topic that gets brought up with our children now, which is something that I never knew in my lifetime. And coming as it's getting the years are coming up, or I don't know what's going on, but the last couple of years we've had the most that we've ever had, which is insane. But a lot of the cities that they're happening in are non-gun cities. Like they're, I don't know what that's called, but it's like how we have San Bernardino, certain areas in San Bernardino are like no gun laws, like you can't have a gun. The regions. Yeah. Okay, so what's really weird is that it's happening in the regions that are no tolerance to guns. Okay. So it's kind of weird to me that that's happening. I don't know if there's a reason behind it or something, and I hate to say that. I don't want to be controversial, something weird, but in my mind, something's driving them to do these things. There's either some sort of media or something that we don't see that these kids are seeing that is helping them understand or helping them decide that they are depressed, angry, mad, and whatever. And the one thing that I did notice that almost all of the schools, which didn't do it when I was a kid, they're handing us like suicide prevention, shootings, they're handing stacks that they bring home from school. And to me, we used to bring home our parents, like our progress reports and like the things that were, about, yeah, or not, well, true, or not.
Or you learn your parents' signature.
Yeah, or not. And I feel like, why wouldn't we put in place something in our educational system that has, if this is happening, why don't we have something that happens in our schools, like protection, like why people would be fighting that we have security at school or whatever. I don't understand why that we.
It's all the money.
Yeah, but we pay so much money in taxes and so much from us as we've paid for our schools. We've paid for our schools. We've paid for everything that's being built in the communities that are for public school or our community centers, like that type of stuff. We pay for that. Why are we not paying for the protection of our youth? Yeah. That is insane to me. And to think like we can have a metal detector when you walk in there, that's fine. But I'm talking about like maybe active veterans who don't have jobs or need something that could be good for them. Protect here at home. Like they didn't even get a chance to protect here at home. They had to go somewhere else and go do it. But why can't we have our own children protected now? And then another thing, I've only seen a very few of them, which I hate to even think that they have to be out there, but bulletproof backpacks, certain things to change for our kids. Like we used to worry about get under the desk because of the earthquake, and now we're like, they're telling you how to lock doors and how to do different things to block out people from coming in, bullets flying at you. Yeah. It just doesn't. It seems very odd. And then also when I think about it, we don't have it most of the time at the shopping centers and all the things. It's only in like one state that it keeps happening over and over and over, which is the shootings. Okay. But like that doesn't happen on a regular day. We're not at the grocery store and people are firing off. So why are we having this at our schools more? Because they're being taught about depression more? Because they're being taught that they're angry? They're being taught that they're that? Or are we losing the concept of even having happy children?
So this is kind of off topic, but it's not. Trust me, I'll come around. In San Diego, the San Diego Bay Bridge? Mm-hmm. When people jump off that bridge, news are not allowed to go film it and put it on the news. Nobody would know. You go and there's traffic, and many times there's a jumper. You can see it from the boats, blah, blah, blah. It happens all the time. They won't put it on the news. Why won't they put it on the news?
It's negative.
Yeah, it's gonna be like, hey, it's I would say, a bridge, I want to go do that because I feel certain. It's making people aware.
It makes people want to do it more because it's out there, right? So school shootings, just like everything that becomes viral, nobody even thought about shooting up a school in our day. Nobody even thought about it because it hadn't happened, right? And depression, that all goes back to the psychology of instant gratification, and we're so addicted to dopamine, right? Likes on Instagram. Yeah. So when we're not getting, we're so addicted, we're getting it all the time. It's like if you drink coffee all day long, go one day without drinking coffee and you're drained. Oh my God, it's hard to move, right? Because you're so addicted to caffeine. Same thing with dopamine and everything. We're so addicted to like, oh my God, cool videos, cat videos, YouTube, blah, blah, podcast, whatever. So whenever when that no longer produces dopamine, it's released for these kids to go into depression. How do they deal with that when they don't have the family aspect of somebody listening to them, right? If when they're having one of those days where they just can't get it, all they hear is their mom or dad telling them like, you're playing video games again? Oh my God, just pretty much bitching at them.
I don't got anything else to do. So yeah.
So we used to lash out some way, right? We just didn't do it that way. That wasn't the thing, right?
You'd get beat.
What was our thing, right? What was our thing?
What was our fighting or something?
Yeah, we used to, fights in the schools happened a lot more when I grew up than they do now. Kids don't fight, don't fist fight. Even as a Marine, as a drill instructor, I'd ask my recruits, how many of you have never been in a fist fight? The number of hands that go up was shocking. And that includes the fact that half the ones that aren't raising their hands is just because they're embarrassed, but really they're lying, right? The amount of, back in my day, I don't think there might have been more than the amount of kids in a graduating class, probably like this many kids in the whole class that never got in a fist fight growing up, right? Now it's a lot of them, right? They fight different. You know, they fight on the internet and stuff. But so we lashed out, right? We go to the alley and smoke cigarettes. Remember, that was a big thing, steal cigarettes and go smoke cigarettes before you're 18. Kids these days, they have no interest in smoking cigarettes. It's to them that's
more.
They got the vape already. They're already at
yeah,
the
well,
the vape.
right. Well, now the vape is in, right? But before there was vape for a while, like it wasn't a teen thing to want to smoke. Like that was already dead because it didn't make you cool. Nobody would talk about you. It didn't give you notoriety to be the kid that smoked cigarettes, right? School shootings, I think that's what they feel like. That's how I'm going to give it to them. That's how I'm going to prove my point. I'm misunderstood. I need to make a point. I need to let them know that they messed up. Well, with these kids, like, what is there? Like, they'll be sorry. How can they, when they feel like nobody cares about them and nobody gives a shit, and even when they do tell them, like, I'm depressed, they're like, oh, shut up, go wash the dishes, you know, or whatever.
Yeah,
or another thing that I've noticed too is that our kids are being put on medications at a very, very young age for depression, for mental illnesses. A lot of them aren't even able to really comprehend their own actions yet, and they're being put on these medications that are really, really kind of driving, I feel a lot, driving towards the depression, towards, they're like, oh, my doctor said I'm depressed, and these are sixth graders.
Yes.
5th, 6th, 7th graders that are doing this, and it's like I remember having depression and stuff as a kid and going through those things that you do and hormonal changes and stuff, but nothing like what you see now. Like you see where kids are just like they have nothing. There's nothing. There's no. It's like just empty.
Yeah, and we keep saying kids, but honestly, like we keep saying kids, but I relate it to society as a whole, because for one, so. I look at it this way, right? Medication is what I call a patch, right? It's a patch. It doesn't actually fix the issue. It's just, you know, it's like if you, I have a really big head and it looks weird. Okay, just buy a bigger hat. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't actually make your head smaller. It's just aesthetically, you know. So it's a patch. It's not a fix. And there's a story about from back in the day when Toyota really became Toyota. You know, they designed their cars to last so long, and so it's an engineering story, but bear with me. They were talking about they went through, why are their cars so reliable compared to them? So they went through an American plant, right? And they checked to see how they make these cars, and
I think I've heard about that.
So like let's say step 17 was the guy that hangs the door, and then step 18, a guy closes it and looks at the gap, and then has a hammer, you know, like a rubber mallet to make sure it's perfectly even, and then the next guy, you know, tightens the bolts. That's step 19, and they go on. And they were taking notes, and they go to Japan and see how they're doing it. Step 17, a guy hangs the door. Step 18, a guy bolts it together, and they move on. They're like, wait a minute. There's something different here. Where's your guy with the mallet? Like, what are you talking about? Well, we have a guy with the mallet to make sure that the little slit in between the door is perfect all around. And they say, oh no, we make sure it's going to fit perfect in the design. So that's going down to the root cause and fixing it there instead of a patch. Yes. So back to, you know, getting rid of the phones, putting security at the schools, hiring veterans at the schools to, you know, all those we want to fix it with sending flyers home talking about depression. Those are all patches. What is the root cause? Why are our kids shooting up schools? Because it's in the news, because it's the new thing, right? There's more of that notoriety than there is education about. How about instead of and it goes back to the media, right? The media gives all this attention to when it happens.
Yeah.
What if the media, for every article they put out about, you know, what happens in school shooting, what if they put out, you know, 8 articles about what happens to the family afterwards? Right? What that person shooting a school caused to the rest of the families and everything. Not just right away, not just a tragedy, but the long-term effects, right? How much these kids hate that their school is known for that. We have a championship football team here, but nobody knows that about my school. All they know about my school and my town is that somebody shot it up. You know, if they report on that more, but they're not going to do that. Why? Because
it doesn't get media.
It doesn't get the attention. And whose fault is that? That's our fault. We're the consumers. We can blame media all day long for the stuff they put out, but they're in it to make money. Rightfully so. It's a business. Who can control it? We can. But what do? Oh, they're talking about, Joe Biden again. They're talking about Donald Trump again. Let me click on it. Yeah, all that stuff. That's what we're looking at. That's what's getting the ratings. So that's what they're going to put out. We do it to ourselves, Yeah, and you can't, before you can fix that abroad, like you said, you got to fix it in your own household, right? When there is an article, or your son, you should have open lines of communication. So when your son comes and talks to you, say, hey, Dad, this guy on TikTok said that I need to do this as a career because that's where the money is. If you have an open line of communication, you say, well, let me look into it, son. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And then you look into it, and then you have a conversation with, hey, son, let's go, let's go grab some Chipotle, and you buy him a burrito, and then you say, hey, that guy, yeah, I read up on this, blah, blah, blah. This is what you need to do. It does work if you do it this way, but it's actually a lot harder, blah, blah, blah. So if that's something you're interested in, I support you. You have to do this. Once they find out that it's not that easy, chances are they're going to say, no, that's not it. Or maybe they do want to do it, but now you're enabling them and supporting them into successfully doing what some guy on TikTok that just cares about clicks made sound all easy for views.
But with that, it would be awesome for them to, say mom or dad, cool, but they have to actually go up to the whoever, mom, dad, aunt, whoever, to actually talk to them. But you have some who are like, oh, I've been shut down so many times, why bother?
Now, sometimes they don't know, so you still got to be a parent, right? Like, I think setting the rule at dinner, no phones at dinner, that's not being extremist.
No.
Yeah, because they grew up in a society where they don't even consider it rude to have a phone at dinner, right? For us, you knew it was rude. So if you're saying that you're being disrespectful and you know it, they don't know that. So we do still have to teach them those things and come up with those rules.
And while you said that right now too, that's another thing. So our mannerisms and the things that we learned as our age versus what is now is different. It's totally different. Us like giving respect to our children. I can remember my grandfather was like, talk to them. What are you talking about? Just whoop their ass. They'll be fine.
Yeah, you'd get in trouble now.
But we don't have we don't have that for our kids. They don't get their butts whooped or nothing like that. This day and age, that's like against the law or something. I don't even know how that works, but it's a lot.
Or if they find out. No,
but that is another thing, is us as our generation learning how to talk to our children is going to be a big one, because a lot of us don't really know how to talk to our kids and what they're going through, because what they're going through is totally different from what we went through. So me going, when I walked through the snow 5 miles, that uphill story doesn't even comprehend with our kids now. They don't even know what an uphill battle was.
Yeah, and our parents did the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all a big circle, right? It's all a big circle. And like in the Marine Corps, you have these guys that are my age to talk about how the new generation is weak as hell. And I don't know, the Marine Corps is not going to survive because these kids are coming in weak. Well, guess what? 20 years ago, when I was a brand new Marine, the guys that were my age were saying the same thing about us. And the Marine Corps still here. Society, same thing. So we all remember that, like you said, our Grandpa Joe or whatever, he used to whoop my butt. Okay, but do you remember that Grandpa Joe would also make your ass get out of bed early? And while he was out there working on the truck, he'd say, get dressed, we're going. And he'd teach you how to change a tire. And he'd teach you how to, change oil. And we tend to not remember those things, right? So it's all perspective. So when we turn around to try to educate or raise our kids, all we remember is the negative stuff, and that's all we try to inflict on them, and then complain that we can't do it anymore. How about remember the values and the good stuff, all the time that your parents did spend with you? I guarantee you our parents spend more time with us on average than we spend with our kids, right? We actually have to make an effort to do it. Back then it was just generic, organic, because you had to do stuff. You grew up in a farm, you were feeding chickens, right?
Yep.
You were doing stuff together. They were teaching you responsibility.
Responsibility with family was one of the biggest things. That's a lot of families too. We're all coming out of transitioning from families whose parents or grandparents worked hard, and they worked hard to the bone, 24 hours a day. Then you're coming into our newer generations, we don't work that hard. We have a totally different,
easy money.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than what it was when we had our, but what they taught us was important, which was to get up early, work hard, be kind to people, do the right thing do the right thing when the door's closed, not when it's open, not just when it's open. Those are the type of things that we all learned, but it's harder to teach our kids that now because they're also being influenced
Yes.
100% being influenced.
A lot more. They're growing up a lot faster.
Maybe
They're
not
getting access to
99.
information
Yeah.
a little bit sooner.
Faster. So we also have to, as a generation, we have to become faster.
Yes.
As parents, we have to become faster. We have to become better at our job
Yes.
as a parent, because if we're not faster than them, they're gonna outsmart us and they're gonna learn from somebody else.
What you were saying about the mechanic. If you're a mechanic 30 years ago, did you have to worry about, I know how to work on BMWs, but not these, not that, 30 years ago?
EVs are huge now, but yeah.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A mechanic 40 years ago was a mechanic.
Yeah.
You had an alternator. You had
Simple-ish.
spark. You had fuel. You had basic stuff to work on it. So if you're a mechanic, you're a mechanic. Period.
Yeah.
Now there's so many more elements to it that if you want to be a mechanic today, it's still the same job, but the execution you have to adapt to the times. Being a parent, teaching values. It's still the same job, but we can't do it the way that our parents did because the environment is different. So we still have the same responsibility to teach our kids these values, to keep the cohesiveness of a family. You know, that's the parent's job. It's not the kid's job to be open-minded enough to come talk to you. It's not his job. It's your job to make him comfortable enough to do that and give him an ear and respect him enough so that he can come to you. It's not his job. So when people are like, oh yeah, my kid, they're just different. They're all broken. They don't know what. No, you were a piece of crap when you were a little kid, and your parents taught you, and that's why you're the person that you are today. So how about you turn around and do that for your child? It's that simple.
Yeah.
But you know, obviously you're not going to do it the same way that Grandpa Joe did it to you because it's a different time. You know, I mean, you can. I remember my second oldest. I spanked him probably 5 or 6 times growing up, and one thing I learned, and I learned this on DI duty, because you can get in trouble if you put your hands on a kid, is I never once touched him or punished him or even yelled at him when he did something that actually pissed me off. If he did something that pissed me off, I walked away, and the look in his face of disappointment was even worse. Yeah. Because the grand majority of the things that he did, all I'm thinking in the back of my head is like, dude, I remember when I was your age. That's nothing, you know. So
I feel like that plays in my head like
yes.
like a little reel.
So the few times that I did spank him, right, it was controlled. It was more for him, right? Like, okay, he needs to learn a lesson. He needs to understand this is not okay, right? I need to emphasize that education is okay. So this F is not okay, and the fact that he didn't bring me the report card and mom found it in the bottom of the you know, of the backpack, that's why I'm going to spank him. And when I spanked him, you know, I mean, this is a kid that in play fighting, right? We used to wrestle around and play. Yeah. In play fight, I have a heavy hand. And in play fighting, I'd mark my hand on his butt. Bah! And he's laughing. He's having a great time because we're rough, you know, we're roughhousing. Yeah. I remember sometimes I just hit him as hard as I could. Bah! And then his little butt would have a hand mark on it, right? And he's laughing. But yet when I'm mad, I wouldn't hit him full force. It was more the emotional, psychological aspect of it, and I would hit him probably like maybe 60% of what I normally would when we're playing, and tears dropping. And like you'd say, I just like stabbed him or something, you know, because it's more of a psychological aspect. So you don't have to, you know, like spank your kids or hit kids to get that same reaction. You know, kids by nature they want to fit in. They're having a hard time understanding their role in life and where they play in life. So you can, first of all, punishing should not be your main source of education. Okay. It just doesn't work, right? What's the whole thing? You get more bees with honey than you do with, or whatever, right? Or you get more ants with honey than you do with, I forget. But anyways, no. But the point is,
I understand what you're
rewarding them for doing the right thing has a much greater effect than punishing them all the time for doing the wrong thing, right? In time, it's like, you know, it's like anything else. They'll enjoy the fact that they pleased you and that they're learning, and especially when they turn around and they see that, oh wow, I'm doing so much better, and it was those little things that my dad taught me. Now you have them eating out of the palm of your hand, right? Yeah. But if it's always negative, you just don't give them any guidance. You wait for them to screw up like they're supposed to because they're children. You wait till they screw up, and they screw up because you didn't guide them through. You didn't give them anything. They're just kind of out there on their own, and then you punish them, and you could see it's not going to work out well. It doesn't. And our parents did not do that to us. That was just our perception, right? And again, I hate to relate everything to the Marine Corps, but you know, I analyze things from what I know, and there's a lot of similarities. In the Marine Corps, you know, the big thing is hazing, right? And for instance, you know, you get promoted and they take those pins and they jab them into, you know, I remember I got promoted.
Oh, do they do that?
Well, they used to. They used to. Now it's like a big, like it'll end your career if you get caught doing that.
Wow.
Does this still happen here and there? Probably, but it's not. Before it used to be wide open accepted.
Yeah.
Well, you have these two little pins, you know, and they stab them into your upper, you know. And I remember when I got promoted to corporal, I thought that was going to be the worst, right? It's like, man, that looks like it hurts, dude.
Yeah.
Like I'm not looking forward to that. But the other thing is part of the uniform that you get when you're an NCO is a red stripe on your blue pants and your blue dress blues. You get that red stripe. Anybody below a certain rank doesn't have it. So aside from doing that, they turn you sideways and they knee you on the side, right here. It hurts like hell.
That's a thigh check right there.
Yes. You have no idea how much it hurts. I had no idea. But anyways, when they did it, right?
I used to do it for fun. I just hit people.
Well, yeah, but the muscle, that's a Charlie horse. That's different. When you do it right there on the side, you have a nerve there, and oh my God, I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. But
Okay.
so they grab this thing and they pin him on there, and then they pull him out so the next guy can do it. And I was like, oh wow, that wasn't bad. And they turn me sideways and they do that, and my whole world changed. Oh my God, there's a line of guys. How am I gonna, you know? But anyways, the point is, the reason that hazing gets out of hand is because, let's say at some point it started and it was well intended, right? Like, welcome to the club, right? Well, the chevrons, there used to be a time when they'd be like, hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
And that's what it was, right? A little punch, maybe a 10% punch.
Yeah.
But my 10%, you perceived it as 30. So when next guy gets perception. When the next guy gets promoted, you go to give him 30, but to him it feels like 50. So then he gives 50.
Yeah.
Before you know it, somebody's getting 80 and they think they just got hit with all force. So the next guy comes, I hit him all force and I break his freaking knee, right?
Yeah.
Now people are getting court-martialed and stuff like that because of abuse, blah, blah, blah. But that's how it happens, right? Perception just elevates. So same thing. We think that our parents were so hard on us and we had so much to do and so much responsibility, and then we don't give credit to the pressures and the things that our kids have to deal with. You have to give them credit. You have to give them credit to the amount of responsibility. Again, my daughter, 5th grade, the amount of organization that she has, she's not as organized as I was because mine was very basic. Get up, make your bed, get dressed, eat breakfast, go to school. I could do that on my own since the 3rd grade because it was so simple. But her, you know, it's like my wife's all involved and blah, 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 because she's curling her hair and like, who cares about curling your hair in 5th grade? Well, when I was in 5th grade, girls didn't have to get their hair curled. It wasn't a thing. Now, if they don't curl their hair and look, because they all have access to Instagram, then they get made fun of, you know? Yeah. And she's got to make sure her iPad is plugged in the night before because she actually uses it for school and all these other elements. We don't give them credit for that. All we do is complain that they're not self-sustained and killing it like we were. Yeah, in our own memory, we were killing it, but we weren't. Ask your parents. And we're like, dude, you know, you have, you know, shit stains on your underwear at that age, you know, like.
So mainly just, all in all, just to be more aware, and I would say be more, you know, at home as well, be more aware at home because, yeah, how you're saying, why are people going out and doing stuff?
Yep. All right.
Well, thank you guys so much. It's awesome. And again, thank you guys for doing us. For being here with us. You guys are awesome. And that's going to conclude today for the Raw Grass Podcast.